Dénht'ā! Hi, how are you? My name's Ella Lamoureux, and welcome to my first episode of Dénht'ā. How are you? Which, in case you don't know, Dénht'ā in my language is a greeting. It says, hello, how are you? How many times can I say that in the first 5 minutes? But I'm quite excited to start this podcast off. It's one that we've had in our mind for a super long time. We're going to be talking about with fellow Indigenous people to discuss their lived experiences, how they incorporate culture in their life, if we do, if we don't, or what we can do better, and how to navigate a colonial world. And I'm quite excited to have my first guest with me, which is one of my closest friends. I adore her, and it's Lethal Leesa. Lethal Leesa.
Hello, I'm Lethal Leesa, aka Lethal Leesa. Thank you for having me, Ella.
Yeah, I'm quite excited. She's such a fantastic person that we just have a good time and we laugh all the time and we just say like native jokes to each other. So I'm quite excited for her to be on the first episode with us. So Leesa, before we get started, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about who you are and what you do and what you love.
So contrary to popular belief, my name is not Lethal Leesa. Lethal Leesa, aka Lisa Resh, is my actual last name. I'm actually Ojibwe, Kasikwanin from Elphinstone. I was adopted into a German and Dutch family, so I am actually the only Indigenous person in my family. So it's really nice to explore my culture and talk about it with other Indigenous people.
Yes, it's amazing. And, I met a lot of her family and they're quite fantastic. And then when I found out that she was adopted, because some of her family look very native. And then they say native jokes. I'm like, whoa, no, just kidding. They don't do that.
Okay, but there was a moment in my childhood before everybody was woke where they would sing, one of these things isn't like the other one, isn't like the other one. Because I was a very slim, slight, very dark. I grew out of my skin color, actually. Like, I was a very dark child, black eyes, black hair. And then as I got older, I got more freckles. I got way more fair. So yeah, that song was very funny at the time.
Were you dancing and laughing to it?
Yeah, sure.
It's like thinking about this. I think about all the times when we were younger and things were super, super funny to us and it doesn't turn out. Like, I'm not going to say it, but do you remember like Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Moe?
Yeah.
Where you used to, because I grew up in the Yukon, we used to say the N word.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
or
we
the
never
tiny,
thought.
Yes.
We never thought anything bad about it. And then we got older and we're like, ooh.
Well, it's kind of funny that happened within our timeline where, we got woke quick. Kind of in our, you're what, 2-3 years older than me? Mm-hmm. In our 20s, like our late 20s, stuff even that we said when we were in our late teens it's not funny anymore. You cannot say it anymore. So It's funny how quickly that outdated itself.
Yeah, like thinking about that with language, how it just evolves and changes. Because like you said, when we were younger, we can say so many things, and I'm happy there wasn't social media or cameras. Otherwise, the shit we would say.
Absolutely. Well, and it's funny too. Kind of like what we were going to talk about was things that we didn't even realize were really like hurting our feelings. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Stuff like tribe.
Yeah.
Or savage.
Yeah.
Or bottom of the totem pole.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It kind of directly relates to that stuff that we thought was funny, stuff that we thought didn't really affect us in any way. The deeper we explore it, the more, and it's difficult too because of this whole like woke culture that it's almost like you're not allowed to have a perspective or a view on how you feel, or else you're woke and you just should, it's like, shut up, but millennial kind of thing.
Yeah, it's wild when you think about the woke, because the people that are saying that, oh, you're acting too woke, are the people that are upset they can't say what they used to say.
Exactly.
And like, I think about this because I talk to a lot of people all the time. I was like, are you upset because you can't say these jokes anymore and being called on it? Or you're not thinking about how us as a culture now have a voice and we're telling you that these things are no longer okay, and you're just mad because you can't keep living your same like bigot life?
I think it's a little bit of both. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people, when they get upset about these kind of things, they go up to 100.
Yeah.
They start yelling and they try to get their point across but with aggression. But if you take it back to a point of like just trying to communicate with somebody and being like, hey, like that doesn't work for me because this is why. But most like I would say like 75 to 95% of people aren't able to communicate it that way.
Yeah.
You know, they just got super upset, and then the other person matches their energy so that they just completely turn off.
And then you're just fighting with each other.
Where like I, in the last few months, have had excellent conversations with some girlfriends of mine where they were saying savage and they were saying tribe and that kind of thing. And I just very calmly, I was like, girl, I was like, that, you know, I might be being a certain way, but I was like, I feel confident that I'm allowed to, okay? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I went through the damn thing.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm like, it doesn't work for me. It hurts my feelings.
Yeah.
So if I'm, as your friend, asking you not to say that, don't. And then like just talking on that level, they responded fantastically. And we're like, okay, I understand.
Yeah, being able to have a conversation with someone does change it all. But you brought it up right now. We're talking about keywords or phrases that have certain meanings that used to be okay, but now realizing that it's not okay to say. And you brought up the word tribe. And I do have a similar story to that because I host drag brunch all the time. And there's always at least one or two each summer that come in with pins that say bride tribe. And I'm always like, do you know what that means? They're like, yes, we're together, we're sisters. Nah. You're like, okay, girl, calm down. I was just like, do you know the inappropriateness of? They're like, no, white power. No, they don't say that.
White power, bride power.
Yeah, exactly.
Move.
Yeah, they don't say that. But in my mind, that's exactly what they're saying.
Yeah.
So I'd have to tell them, but I sometimes don't have the best communication because I'm on a mic, so I just shame them.
But it's funny because then that gets them that gets them more worked up that they're going to go to the next place, even more amped up on tribe power.
Yeah, exactly. Some of them take the pin off, and I was like, okay, good girl.
Yeah.
But how would you mentioned you have some friends that would say that, and
I've had, you know, I would say mostly good responses because she's been to therapy. She's learned how to communicate. Where, you know, if you meet something with aggression, it's going to be met with aggression as well.
Yeah.
So if you're up here saying, you can't use the word tribe because it's my people saying it, blah, 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 like, and then they're just going to be like, and they'll meet you with that same thing and they're not going to hear you. They're not going to let you in. So just to be like, to bring it back down to like here, it's just like, hey, like that actually hurts my feelings. I'm not actually sure why.
Yeah.
I'm still unpacking that, but I need you to be okay with not using that word.
Yeah.
That's where I get the most response.
I think that's a good idea. And also you mentioned having your feelings within your dialogue. But I feel like we also need to come in with some facts as well. And the point that you just said, I'm unsure, I'm still unpacking it, but it'd be great for you not to say it. I never thought to word it like that.
Yeah.
I've always like, if I see something that bothers me, I feel like I need to back it up with something so I can get them with reasoning, plus some facts, plus with emotional aspect.
But that's the trauma of being a First Nations person, where those people haven't necessarily been through it, so you kind of just want to stick it to them and be like, you know, or your
power.
Instant response is like audacity, where it's like, how dare you think that's okay? And then, but so if you, like I said, like you go, you know, when you learn how to deal with your big emotions and you're able to respond in that kind of communicative type of way, you're going to get the best response.
Yeah. That makes sense. Thank you. Learning things every day.
Yeah.
But we talked about tribe. Let's talk about other phrases that some people might not know are super, super bad. I shouldn't say super bad, but inappropriate. And we were learning to
Absolutely.
not think.
Even when I remember you and I did a class together and somebody said, powwow.
Yeah. Let's have a powwow.
And I remember, like, I responded really weird to that. Like, they said it and then you called them out and I laughed because I was super uncomfortable. And then I was like, what was that? Like, why did I laugh? Like, it was just such a...
And it was in a weird situation as well, because it was during a burlesque training class.
Absolutely.
And you and I were doing that. And burlesque, which I always thought was very inclusive, but like now being more entrenched in the community, I realized that it's not.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense. And then
Absolutely.
the two teachers were from America.
Yep.
And they came in here and they said, like, let's go have our little separate powwows or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I was like, that's inappropriate.
Them out, and I was like, ha ha! And then I was like, oh my God, why did I just laugh?
They're like, am I part of the problem?
Yeah, I am part of the problem. But it's funny. It's like, it's almost exhausting to have to do the work all the time for that kind of thing, where it's like, why isn't it okay to say this? And then you have to sit there and explain, and then they're allowed to come at you and plead their case, where in reality,
they don't have a case.
They don't have a case. And why is it up to me to the person that you know, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'm losing.
I know what you're saying is because I find the same was like, because it's like mentally tiring. If you're constantly going outside, you're constantly correcting, you're constantly like educating. I always tell people it's not my responsibility. If I feel mentally in a place that I want to educate, then I'll tell the person.
Exactly.
Or I could be like, hey, that's inappropriate. And they're like, well, why? And I was like, well, I don't need to tell you why. I just told you it's inappropriate.
And I also might not even like know at this moment.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it sounds wrong. It's inappropriate. You can do the language. We all have computers in our pocket now. You can
Google it, baby.
Yeah, Google it, baby. Or like, because like for some people, powwow, what they don't know, for anyone that's listening that may be new to this, it's just a term to, well, back in the day or with us, it was a ceremony where we have big meetings and we discuss things. It's not something to be thrown frivolously around for two people to have a conversation in the corner. That's
absolutely.
Yeah, that's the thing. And then another one that I think is fantastic is low man on the totem pole.
I also love that too.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're going to say exactly why.
Yeah, and I'll just say it really quickly, like what it means, because a lot of people say it as in you're the low man on the totem pole, and they mean that you're the lowest person and that you don't have any respect.
Yeah.
But
It's
Indigenous...
like, girl?
Yeah, let
the
me
best
correct
place
you.
to be.
Yeah, because on the totem pole, it's usually the chief because they're holding up the rest of the people, and they just reversed it. So,
But isn't that almost ironic?
yeah, it is. And I just be like, yeah, exactly. Girl, listen, I have to tell you about what you're doing wrong. And yeah, but I kind of like it. I'm not hearing it from people. I just like low man on the totem pole.
Yeah.
I like I like how it sounds, but saying it low man on the totem pole, you're like, who's holding up the totem pole? We just finished talking about low man on the totem pole, but let's talk about a few more phrases that you may not know, or I didn't know that was something bad until I started looking it up. Indian giver. Do you know the reason why that started out the way it has?
No.
Okay, so searching this, I knew Indian giver was like something you said about someone that took back something, and I was like, that's so rude and blah, blah, blah. But it came back from...
Like, that's so rude. Give me that.
Yeah.
Give me that.
Done with you. No, but it started because when the trappers and the traders came in here, they would make bargains with Indigenous people, but then the white people, or the colonizers, the settlers, weren't following through with their end of the bargain, either because of a language barrier, so the natives would come and take their thing back, because they weren't following with the bargains that were made. So then they become an Indian giver, and then it got washed into what is called now.
Wow. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I didn't either. I was like, oh, this is so rude. But I think it's neat that now it's turned into this really derogatory thing, but it came from a space where the settlers weren't following.
Odd.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's so wild.
Yeah.
So now anytime someone says an Indian giver, you'd be like, didn't follow through on your bargain, bitch.
I've just been really struggling with the term savage. And it is like, it's such a like, it's so part of the culture right now, just like a part of, and you know, I don't even know why. I don't think I need to explain why. Yeah. I feel like I'm allowed to not like it, and it's allowed to hurt my feelings, and that's just what it is. I just doesn't resonate with me. Yeah. And I've even had conversations with my boss about it, because it was part of his like the nomenclature or whatever, where he would just say savage. Yeah. And it just hit my ear wrong. Mm-hmm. It just, like, you know, I'm a product of my birth mother was scooped. My biological parents were in residential school. And for me, it's calling something savage as being like, ooh, that's really intense, or that's like, to me, that just hits the ear wrong. And I've, again, like I said, like, I'm a communicator. Mm-hmm. I have talked to a lot of my girlfriends and a lot of my boyfriends and all of that kind of stuff. Boys as in friends in that sense. That it, like, that just doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. And it's frustrating to kind of battle this whole woke culture, right? Mm-hmm. Because the second anything bothers you that's kind of outside of the norm, that's something a little bit outside of somebody's comfort zone, especially when they're older, all of a sudden you're woke, you're a millennial, you're this, you're that. So that's why I think this like heavy communication aspect of it has really been helping me out. And I think it actually helps them out too, because they're lost. They don't know why they're not allowed to say that kind of stuff. So for me, where I'm just like, I'm like, savage hurts your girl's feelings. Yeah. And I don't know why. And then I'll explain to them a little bit of my background. Like, as your friend, this is why it doesn't work for me.
Well, it also does come from the term of savage, where
when the
colonizers first came here, and they assumed that we were like uncivilized, uncultured, like dirty, filthy. And then,
Yeah.
you know, when you kind of think about it, like they call us dirty and filthy, but then the savages and the settlers, they didn't bathe or shower often, and they brought disease, and we were like pristine and clean, and that's why we got killed out so quickly.
We're talking cocoam to John Smith.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of, oh my God, do you remember the Disney movie?
Pocahontas?
Savages, barely even human.
And it was wild.
It's
and
like
then
ingrained into our memory.
yeah, but then do you remember watching when you were younger and singing along to it?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, singing is amazing. This is me. Or like in
But it's
Peter
funny
Pan
because
when
at
they're
first,
smoking
like
the
when I was a
peace
kid, I was like, John Smith. Now I get older, I'm like, cocoam.
yeah,
Are you
Kokum
nuts?
with like the tattoos and his big old bare chest.
Jeez Louise.
So hot.
Yes.
Yes, but like savage.
Yeah. Anyways.
Anyways, oh.
Cocoam aside.
I do have a feel like, because when I was younger, savage was a word that we said a lot as well.
Oh, yeah.
And then it died off, and then it started getting like a little resurgence a couple years ago. But I find within the queer community, I don't hear it a lot, but I hear it a lot in the straight community.
Because I think in the queer community, people are a little bit more careful of what they say just because
Or they're willing to listen.
they're willing to change their speech to be like, oh, hey, that could hurt somebody's feelings. Like that could. So, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I've had this conversation at work.
Yeah.
And it was not.
And like it's good because I know you quite well, and you are a good communicator. Has getting older and being woke has made conversations easier?
No. Going to therapy, and honestly, like that's the biggest thing I can say. Like, go to therapy.
Yeah.
Just go to therapy.
Everyone
go to therapy now, tomorrow, next week. Just go.
It does teach you how to communicate, and
it teaches you how to communicate your own feelings to others. And that's the only reason I'm able to communicate the way I am able to. Yeah. Because before I was just, honestly, if you all want to hear a crazy secret, the reason I got my name Lethal Leesa is because your girl used to drink that R&R res romance, get totally freaking wasted on the res, and just like fight chicks and be a crazy person. And they used to use that term towards me derogatory. They'd be like, ooh, Lethal Leesa came out last night. And I'd be like, oh God, like what happened? But then as I started getting older and stuff, I was like, you know what? I was like, I am Lethal Leesa, but in a different way. So I took that name on to be my own. And I was like, I'm going to be lethal, but I'm going to be lethal in like a cool way. Like I'm going to like slay this down in a different way. I'm not going to be some like, you know, drunk on freaking R&R on the res, punching a chick out.
Yeah, cheap rum.
And on that note, sorry, it's so funny. The amount, if you've been in a lot of fights, you'll lose half of them.
Yeah.
I've had my ass
But the ones you win is the only ones you remember.
Exactly.
You know, you talk about this story because I knew the story behind Lethal Leesa because you told us. But when I first met you as Lethal Leesa, all I thought was like, ooh, that deadly girl over there. You know, that's what I thought. Lethal.
I was so deadly.
It's like super cool, deadly. That's what I thought for lethal, because like I met you. Oh, when did we meet now? Like almost 15 years ago now?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, we're just little babies. We met in the cemetery.
Yes, you were dressed as a devil. I was dressed as a
schoolgirl that was going to murder someone.
Schoolgirl, yes.
Wearing the tiniest little plaid skirt I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my God, I was like size like 26 waist back then. Yes.
And yeah, when I met you, I just thought lethal was like something for deadly because I was like, this chick's pretty cool. She's eating someone's heart that she just met over a grave.
It kind of worked out in my benefit, but they definitely were like, ooh, Lethal came out last night. And I was like.
And then there's probably parts where people learn to leave you alone a little bit, right? They're like, oh, don't fuck with that bitch.
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But then
I still to this day, and I'm not saying this in a like, ooh, la, la kind of way. I've got girls coming up to me. They're like, I was fucking terrified of you.
Well, you do have an aura around you. Not an aura, but you do have a sense of like, don't fuck with me. But
it's gone away. It's gotten way softer. I'm very like.
No. Like what I mean now, when I mean when
I'm very approachable. Right?
The don't fuck with you. It's the mentality as, you know, if they step out of line, you're going to let them know. You know what I mean? You're not going to fight them. You're not going to go to, you're going to be like, hey, this was not cool. And you do that for everyone. Like if it's your friend or someone you just met, if it's a queer person you mean, you're always the first one to be like, no, that was not cool.
And you know what's funny too, Ella, is that I'm just kind of realizing this now because I don't really talk about my life in this sort of context a lot, is that before I would just be like, now I'm going to punch you in the face. But with all the work I've done on myself, investment in myself or whatever. Now I'll like pull them aside and be like, hey, this is why it doesn't work. And also be scared of me because I still will punch you in the face. But let's communicate about it first. Like, hey, like that was actually like, you know, like I would way rather, well, I mean, you can't, as adults, we can't be getting in.
Yeah, we're getting old. Things break easier.
Yeah, exactly. And assault charges.
Yeah, exactly. Assault charges. Don't need that.
No.
Oh my God. Can you imagine where we are now? Just like finding up in the newspaper.
Kaska Dene, interior designer charged with assault.
Yeah. Acting savage.
Acting like a savage is just me.
One.
Lethal, baby.
Oh my God. We need to get a little clip of that just for the show. Okay, let's reverse and talk about some other things that you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
And you can tell me if we can talk about this or not. But you have a similar story with a lot of other Indigenous people growing up in the 80s or being born in the 80s and the 90s raised us, is being adopted out of your Indigenous family and put into a non-white, non-Native family.
Yeah.
Did you find growing up, because they told you were adopted from the beginning, because you said they played the not like the other, was finding culture after that, was that a little hard or was it difficult, like reaching out?
Absolutely. But only up until I started reaching grade school, because my parents always knew I was Indigenous. They always told me I was. They always, like, there was never any sort of, like, they didn't do anything except try and put me into that culture. Mm-hmm. I think it's a little bit more accessible now than it was then, because this was what, the early 1940s when I was 5.
The math is mathing.
I would say 1995. But like even when I was young, there was all of these like First Nations like classes, so they would take us out and, you know, show us all this. And if you were identified as First Nations, they would take you out and do that. So that was a huge part of, like, when I was growing up, that really kind of connected me with my First Nations side. Did you find that in, like, where did you go to school?
I went to school in the Yukon, so there was Native-specific courses.
Yeah. Okay.
And then we had a lot of culture involved with it, and we had summer camps and Native camps, so I was very entrenched with my culture. But the reason why I brought up yours is because I know a lot of people that grew up with a non-Native family is that they like cut them off completely.
No.
And I also have a little background in social work, and they tried to put me into child services, and they have new rules now where if they're an adoptive Native person is being adopted out, they always try to put them within their Native family first, and then they'll reach out to another family. And then the rules are they have to at least go to one Native specific event once a month. Like they have to like.
Oh, really?
Like there's all these rules that are going out, but I don't know if the people are following through.
Well,
with
you know
it.
what's cool then is that my parents just did that regardless.
Which is awesome.
And my dad loved it. Like my dad is like a very creative person. He was always like, you know, woodworking and fishing, and like he was always taking me fishing and you know, things that are kind of intrinsic to every culture, you know, cooking and being in the kitchen with your mother and your dad taking you out into the forest and that kind of thing. Like that's very intrinsic to a lot of cultures, but they were always very, they always really included that in my life. Always.
Yep. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, this may be a little off topic, but it made me think about it. Lisa and I can dress up very glamorous all the time. Like look at her now and look at myself. Like we look so good all the time. And then we will go camping with all these like buff, muscular men that are all like, whoa, so manly. And like Lisa and I are always the ones holding down the camp.
Oh my God. Okay, wait. I want to take this moment to tell the story.
Okay.
Me and you went camping with my trailer.
Yeah.
And so Ella has her camping espadrilles.
My heels.
So they're not like they're heels.
Yeah, but they're
the cork, and then they've got like that. Like they're a hard going heel
For the campsite.
And then so Ella's, we're setting up the trailer. We're putting down like the logs to like crank it up, but Ella's right in there, like Ella, like with her nails and everything. Is there cranking down the trailer, like no, like anything a man can do, Ella can do better. I swear to God, it doesn't matter how glamorous you are.
Yeah,
I just think, yeah.
But it's always so funny that that you and I are the ones that are always holding it down. But then I do enjoy camping with Lisa because she has all the camping gear and then she cooks. And I don't mind. I'll do dishes. Yes, There's always a meal going and I will do dishes. Best person to go camping with.
Yes.
Amazing. So let's talk about, okay, we mentioned a little bit about your family, which is fantastic. Do you now have specific things that you like to incorporate into your lifestyle that is Indigenous focused?
Yes. Actually, it's funny. I kind of like sense how you're going to go right there.
Felt it.
Due to my unagi. Spirituality wise, I was going to say that so I never felt connected to, like, my mom and dad took me to church when I was young, and actually, this is kind of a side note, I was a really weird kid. I used to be obsessed with infinity, and I wouldn't sleep, like not
the infinity symbol,
how forever is forever, and I like wouldn't sleep at night because I was like, forever, and it
just
really,
a young person of an
really
existential
messed
crisis
with my head. And then also they threw like this whole Christianity thing on top of it, and I was like, sky daddy, like what? I just like this some like white guy in the sky with a beard, and like the whole Bible, like it just seemed really, no offense to anybody, far-fetched to me. Like I never really resonated with the whole classic Christianity Bible. But what in my later years, actually, I met a friend, Jamie, and I got more involved in like paganism and like Wicca and stuff, and not in an evil connotation. Like I'll just say out front that I would never in my entire life do anything negative. You never do negative witchcraft. You never incorporate anybody's blood or negative thought or in any way. It's all you do with that kind of thing is you set your intentions with the moon phase. You light it on fire and then you sprinkle it with salt. So it's like earth, water, wind, fire. And is that not in itself like intrinsically native? Right?
Yeah, because like one of the big lessons that you heard, well, what I learned with my part of the world in the Yukon is that you always set your intention. Like if you're going to be wrapping someone's gift or you're making a gift, always go in there with a clear mind, because you're imbuing your emotions into what you're doing. So every time I'm doing something for someone else, I'm like, I got to be in a good mood. If I'm in a bad mood, I'm not going to wrap gifts, because I need to be able to imbue what I'm doing with my intention.
And that's the whole basis and everything of paganism, right? And so it's just like,
well, if you think of Christmas,
intentions, and every holiday, you know, Easter, Christmas, every holiday, I don't have to name them. Yeah. You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say is that was the way that I was able to find my spirituality. That's the way that I was able to eventually kind of calm down on the whole, like forever kind of thing. Like, you know, like,
and it is a little bit when you think of energy, right? Like it's just like going back into the earth and we're recycling. Exactly. I mean, most humans aren't now because we're so full of formaldehyde. Like it's not really doing anything.
Don't get me going on forever, okay? Do not mess with Queen of Forever, okay? But so I was able to, as I've got my little pentagram here.
I know, and I also love that your earrings have moons on them.
It's also funny too, because a lot of people don't know that the pentagram is earth, water, wind, fire, and spirit. Everybody thinks it's this like evil thing.
Yeah. Turn it upside down, it's a goat's head kind of thing. You're like, okay, come on.
But that's the other thing too, is that's Baphomet, which Baphomet is not an evil figure either. Baphomet is like a embodiment of all things feminine and all things masculine. It's just funny, like how all of these things have been giving this like devil connotation. It's because the church wasn't able to control it, therefore it became evil.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's wild, but it's good that you found like ceremony. And it could be in someone's own view, right? It doesn't, I always find it weird when people are gatekeeping certain ceremonial aspects of life, because I can go into a place
I'm
and
having
be
like triple deja vu right now. It's crazy. Go ahead.
Because I find myself be like, oh, like I smudge my place a little bit and I tell them what I use and they're like, well, that's not Indigenous. I'd be like,
doesn't matter.
Why are you telling me what I can and cannot use? You are from the plains and I'm from the Yukon. I was like, we use a certain fungus in ours that doesn't grow down here. Yeah. And I was like, but if I want to incorporate other places that are from around here and from there, I have the right to do that, because we're becoming a melting pot in Canada of all our different Indigenous cultures, because we're still trying to find our ceremony because it's been blocked out because of the settlers and colonization and residential schools.
Even in that sense too, where you're not just the fact that it's your Indigenous in your band or whatever. It's you, Ella. That's your ceremony. Yeah. That's what I've been like. So it was really hard for me to kind of like shake that off. I thought I had to like buy all these books and do everything perfectly and like have like this herb and whatever. But then I found like I got the best advice from a girlfriend and was like, your magic is your own. Right. Yeah. So, and then after that, it became my own. Right. So I was like, you know what? All of that aside, I'm just going to be my magical self. I'm going to do what feels right. I'm going to write down what feels right. I'm going to do my ceremony what feels right. And everything on top of that is just a bonus.
Yeah. And then it just feels more authentic and things just flow a bit better because you're like, now I'm doing it for me, even though it always was, but it feels like you're doing it for someone else as well. Yeah. But then that just changes everything.
Because you're trying to do it to
the trying to fit like what everyone sees it as or trying to fit a ticky box. And you're like, no, I am finding my own spirituality or my own culture and I have to find what works for me because we live in a very colonial world. Exactly. That doesn't believe in that because even like you said with paganism or like
it's like lighting a house on fire. It's like this is what feels right. Okay, feels right to me. Just let it burn.
It feels right. It's a residential school.
Yeah, let it burn.
Let it burn. Let it burn. But yeah, it's all about navigating it how we feel that fits us because we're never going to go back to a traditional way of living because that's gone. But we can find aspects of a way that we used to live to incorporate into our life.
Absolutely. And kind of on that note too, like, you know, when the first the Kamloops residential school thing kind of came out and I remember just feeling like so impotent and I was like, this is awful. And I felt that really messed me up. Like that really messed me up. And then I was just like, Ella, I was like, let's do something. Yeah. And you and I organized, we organized an event at Dorothy's and we raised $3,000. Yeah. Or I don't know, I made that up. Anyways, it was in the thousands. We raised some good money for.
And if you want to watch it, it's on Unicorns Live still.
Yes, exactly. Please do. But that's the thing. It's like if you feel passionate about something, and you feel like you can do something, all it takes is like that was, 3 or 4 phone calls to you, to Dustin, I believe. Yeah. And to a couple other performers where. If you feel like you can do something and you can raise some money, do it. And like don't let anybody stop you from doing it.
Yeah, like if you're passionate, go for it. And I remember because you reached out to me and we put this together really quickly.
Oh God, yeah.
We had a set of people. We had like drag, we had burlesque, we had like so many things coming up, and it was a beautiful evening. And I'm not a super emotional person.
Oh God,
like things are always kept down. I've always been grown up to look a certain way, to act a certain way, and it's kind of messed with my head. But I remember doing my number that day, and then I just broke down crying, and I don't express so much emotion.
Shocked to
and I walked off
stage.
But
at the same time, I wasn't. It was.
I was overcome with emotion because I was amazed at how quickly it came together. All the people that were in the audience. It wasn't a big show, but it was full, and like people were there. They were donating, and it was just a beautiful night.
My family was like my whole family, my Uncle Gus, my Auntie Marie, my cousin, like they were watching. They were like, how do we support you? Like it was beautiful. Yeah. And that's just the thing. It's like, it went from something devastating. It didn't change the fact that it was devastating, but the fact that people that we care about, people that care about us, came together so quickly and came together so completely to support us was incredible. Yeah. So all that to say, if you're passionate about something like that.
And like what's wild, let's touch a bit on this on the Kamloops residential school that came out. It's such a wild thing where we have been telling people for years about what's happened at a residential school. I don't have firsthand knowledge, but my mother was there, and you said your mother was there, right?
My grandmother.
Your grandmother. So like I have stories that they told from my aunts and uncles about how terrifying and how shitty it was and how like traumatizing it was. Mm-hmm. And I remember telling people, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's fine. It's just school. It's in the past." And then they dug out the 243 kids or whatever the number was. I don't remember. I think it was around there. Yeah. And then finally the world was like, "Oh, they did what in Canada?" It's like, why does no one listen until a tragic event happens?
To this day, I meet people that are like, what? Yeah. That they've just never heard about. And in a sense, I guess ignorance is bliss, but it is ignorance. Yeah. Really. You live here on this land and you don't know what happened. Yeah. That's bananas to me. Like
And talking about being a visitor here. I'm also a visitor here because I always talk about this all the time, that I'm from the Yukon, so I'm still a visitor on this part of Canada.
Same.
And I tell people, like, I'm still grateful here. I'm still doing my part. I'm still saying thank you to the earth wherever I am, because I'm still visiting this part of the earth. I'm grateful that I'm taken in and people respect me and they love me when I'm here. But we got to remember everywhere we go to respect
I agree.
where we are.
Yeah, I lived on the Okanagan Reserve for a bit, and they, I felt completely welcome there. And they totally welcomed me with open arms as another Indigenous person, but I was like, I am not Okanagan, and I know that. So,
yeah.
I think it's important to be like, it's just because you're native doesn't mean you're native everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But like, we still got to be conscientious of people's like lived experience if you're coming from another reservation. Because I hate it when I go someplace and they're like, well, you're not from here. And I was like, I know I'm not. I never said I was, but I'm here to listen. I want to learn.
Well, and like maybe unpopular opinion, like the Okanagan Reserve here, like they live on prime beachfront. Like and it's a different experience than say the Manitoba Reserve or Yukon Reserve. And not to take away from any sort of, I don't even know what my point is. It's just a slightly different experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can maybe edit that one out now. Just edit that out.
It is, though. It is a different experience because, like, we got to remember that we're all coming from all different walks of life, but we have the same similarity of colonization and being torn away from our culture and then rebuilding our culture. Yeah. And it's a struggle for a lot of people. And then you see that with alcoholism in a lot of reservations. You see it with, like, intergenerational trauma. And then you see that with, like, violence and lateral violence. So we all have something that binds us together, but then we also have things that we can learn and take from it, not from the abuse, not that. But I sometimes have an unpopular opinion where people are talking about how we were given all these handouts, and sometimes like, whoa, let's not talk about handouts. I was like, I do agree with you that we have resources. I was like, but sometimes the resources aren't easily accessible.
Also, I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I think that's just how it is that, you get punched down so hard where your parents were in residential school, so they come out and they're abusing alcohol to forget, and then you get your ass beat. And now there's a resource there for your kid. That doesn't mean, that's not a handout. Yeah. That's the government trying to make up for it and apologize to what the hell happened. Our tax dollars this and la la la. It's like, no. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you don't know.
Absolutely.
It was like, what was it? It was a crown dollar that was given to us. It's still a fund that's in there that we're using.
And insurance built off of that pays for all of that stuff. Yeah. No tax money goes to us. The money that they gave to us initially, the insurance built off of that is what pays First Nations. Yeah. Nothing about anybody's tax dollars. Yeah.
But are people going to listen to that? No. It's just the
same
ones that are going to
be like, la, 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 on this part of the podcast.
Same ones that don't want to listen to this, to the word savage, right? Like, yeah, well, exactly. You're just a savage living on res land, taking our money. Yeah. Like, okay, girl, come down.
Yeah. Bride tribe.
Yeah. Woo, white power. All right, Lisa, I feel like we had such a fantastic conversation discussing our life, discussing where we come from, where we met, cultural relevance in our life, talking about spirituality. I just feel that we are still quite young and there's so much that we can learn within our life and so much that we can accumulate, and bringing it around a little bit. There is so much that we are still learning and recuperating because culture was lost for quite heavy for a lot of us, that everything is now being rebuilt. And then when some people talk to me, they're like, well, you don't, like, how can you say this about your culture? Like, it wasn't around. I was like, what are you saying when it wasn't around? Because you weren't around 100 years ago either. But the difference is with your culture is that you're able to keep it and build on it, where we were torn and taken away from it. And then it was beaten out of us. And now we're resurging it. Of course, we don't know everything.
Well, but lost. In that sense, it is up to us to rebuild it and to keep a sense of what it is and what it means. And, we may not know everything, but we feel it inside and we know what it feels like and we know what to pass on and that kind of thing. So I do feel confident in being able to pass that on to friends and family, and not even people that are Indigenous, but friends that, need to learn more about me and more about you, and even just having this opportunity to talk to you and talk to the podcast and just talk online without somebody talking over me or talking you know, having their opinion countering mine. It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
This is my opinion, unedited. Like this is what I have to say. So big fat listen.
Talking about that now, what you just said, I find it so funny when I'm talking to a non-Indigenous person and they're like, I have something to say.
Yeah, it's like, no, you don't.
Like, yeah, it's like, no, you don't. Unless you're going to ask a question for me to clarify something, I was like, then that's fine. I was like, but you don't have an opinion on this.
But you know, they think they do, but they, and it's, I mean, everybody can have an opinion. That's for damn sure, but not in the sense, like if you haven't lived the experience and you have an opinion on that, that's like me coming in, like you telling me a memory from your childhood and me being like, actually, this is what happened. I was there.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
weren't.
It was my memory.
You know what I mean?
Like judging you by how you look, this is what happened. Yeah. Like, okay, girl, calm down.
So it's nice to just, you know, talk about it unadulterated.
Yeah. I have a lot of high hopes for this podcast because I feel like not enough Indigenous stories or experiences are talked about enough, or people just see us as Indigenous and they've all been assimilated into their world that they don't need to think about it. And granted, a lot of people don't need to, but I feel like just like with all cultures, Canada specifically with Indigenous people, we need to honor and respect everyone and listen to it. And this has popped to my head right now. I hate it when people say like, I don't see color in Canada or I don't see culture in Canada.
That's ignorant to
me. And I was like, that just sounds lazy.
It is lazy.
You don't want to pay attention to everyone
color,
else.
but I respect it.
Yeah.
It's like you're black, you're black. But,
yeah.
you know,
I'm acknowledging that you're
it.
black.
Yeah.
You have different experiences.
Well, and like just, I know we're wrapping up or whatever, but it's been hard for me as a light Indigenous person. I'm half Indigenous.
Let's talk about that privilege.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking.
Well, actually, no, really quick. So I was kind of waxing poetic about how light I am and how it's, you know, unlived Indigenous, blah, blah, blah. And my friend, he's actually I don't want to get it wrong. I think he's a grass dancer. He was adopted into a white family as well, but he's visibly Native. He's full Native. And he's like, this is your power move. He's like, get in there. He's like, you're the secret agent. And I was like, oh my God, that's a really cool way to think about it. He's like, you have the voice. He's like, you have the space. You're going to be allowed in spaces that we aren't. He's like, so use that to your use that positively and get into spaces that we aren't allowed because, you know, you are us. And we are you, so like get in there and use it. And I was like, oh my God, like that's a beautiful way to think of it.
It's a beautiful way to think of it, but also at the same time, it's shitty on the other people that we have to be lighter skinned to be able to get our voices heard a little bit more.
Well, it is, but you know.
It's a great way to think of it.
Okay, secret agent Lethal.
Secret agent. Yeah, exactly, got you. I want to talk about this and I'll get your opinion on it. So on New Year's night, just recently, I was having an argument with someone because I was talking about someone being a terrible person, and they're like, this person happened to be black. And they're like, whoa, you don't understand like what they went through. And I was like, I get it. I was like, but their skin color doesn't have anything to do with me thinking that they have a shitty attitude.
Terrible person.
And then they
with
responded with, well, you don't get it because people treat you like you're white. And I was just like,
people don't treat you like you're white.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, excuse me? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, people treat you like you're white. You wouldn't understand a person of color, how they experience the world.
You're
like,
are
you telling me?
I'm a two-spirited First Nations drag queen. You don't know.
Literally.
That's rich.
Yeah. And I was like,
rich.
are you telling me as a person of color that I wouldn't understand a different way of opinion? And they're like, well, I'm just saying to treat you like you're white. And I'm like, well, do you treat me like I'm white? Some
people always have to try and get the last word in.
Yeah. And it was just.
As I cut you off.
Yeah. And it was just such a weird conversation to have. And I was getting angry. So I was like, you know what? I was like, we're not going to have this conversation. I was like, you're drunk. And then he messaged me the next day. He's like, well, last night was wild. And I was like, okay, happy New Year.
Yeah, wild in the sense that you suck.
Yeah. And it was just like, and then I started thinking about it because a lot of people do treat me like I'm white. And I shouldn't say it that way, but like I get treated differently because I've learned how to navigate this world more than say someone that, how am I going to sound this?
I don't know.
But
I get it.
But like I have learned how to walk in this white world to be able to garner.
But does that mean that they're
respect.
treating you like you're white, or does that mean that you've learned to walk in the sense that the way that I think you have gracefully learned to walk in
a white world?
In a white world. That doesn't mean that they're treating you like you're white. It means they're treating you like you're Indigenous, but you've got on your white guy shoes so that you can like walk through it.
That's a better way of saying it.
Yeah.
But yes, but once again, don't tell anyone, a person of color, that they treat you like you're white. I feel like that's just an ignorant way to get out of a conversation, or to treat someone like.
And you know what? So it's so funny. I turn off, and you can tell, like when people like start talking about, for example, like it's very polarizing, like the vaccine or something like that. And like we're in a big group setting, and everybody's talking. I just go. And there's like a moment of like, I literally just disassociate, and I start thinking about anything else. Like it just, to me, that protects my energy.
Oh, totally.
Like I just stop listening. I just don't care to engage, but I also don't care enough to like walk away and go stand alone. I'll just stand there and just be like.
But protecting your energy is very key.
In a sense, that's me walking, not in a white world. That's just me learning how to walk in my world, right? Like that protects my energy. And exactly like you walking in a white world, it protects your energy and things not to engage with, to start a fight or to counter somebody or whatever. It's just like, that doesn't make me any less. That means that I am now putting on my gloves to deal with your bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Keep everything clean with the gloves.
Yeah.
Amazing. Leesa, we are now going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for being here. You're such a fantastic person. Is there anything that you would love to say before we head on out?
No. Now that I'm stuck, no. I think I've said enough, actually.
I think we stuck to it so much. I'm very grateful that you're here to have this candid conversation with me. Because like you said earlier, sometimes we don't get this opportunity to just talk Native. Or about Native subjects.
Or talk about yourself even. Like, I'm not one to just sit there and talk about myself. Yeah, and there's things that I've said tonight that I'm not sure I've ever said. So it's very...
Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you for opening up with us.
Thank you for having me.
And our 10-year anniversary, we'll have you back.
Okay.
But once again, thank you all for coming out with the first episode of Dénht'ā. Stay tuned. Subscribe to Unicorns Live so you can see what happens every week when I have a new customer. A
new customer? Am I getting a bill in the mail?
Yeah, you're getting an invoice. So tune in once a week at Unicorns Live. We have a new guest every week. We're going to be talking about Indigenous lived experiences and navigating a colonial world.
And none will be better than the first, but thank you.
Yes, nothing will be better than the first. Yeah. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.